Chapter 6. When Gabby woke the following morning, she immediately knew where she was and why she was there. Sometimes she wouldn't if she wasn't somewhere familiar, but she did there. She wasn't sure why. Instead of thinking about where she was sleeping, she woke up with Noah on her mind. She showered quickly before rushing downstairs. She had an hour before auditions, but Noah had told her about something at the bakery she had to try. Every Saturday morning, Miranda made collages, and he made them sound like the most delicious thing in the entire world. She needed to try them before going home to Louisiana. She knew she'd go back if only to pack her clothes for her move to Idaho. Already she hated the thought of leaving this beautiful place, even for a short while. She bundled up as warmly as she could and made her way to the Old West town. There she found the bakery, and Miranda was there, with two girls who looked to be a little younger than Gabby was. There was a long line out the door. She shivered a little as she waited her turn, finally getting to the front door. "Please tell me you have collages." She needed to at least try them. The girl at the counter nodded. "We do. Do you want sausage and cheese or ham and cheese?" "Ham and cheese, please." "I'd like two." Noah had said he usually ate 6, so Gabby was sure 2 would be more than enough for her. Miranda saw her and called from the back. "I can't come say hi because we're almost out of collages, and I need to make more, but I'll see you soon." Gabby lifted her bag triumphantly. "I got mine. See you later." She left the bakery, weaving in and out of people. It was amazing how devoted these people were to Miranda's culinary creations. She walked over to a bench in front of the general store, which appeared to be closed. She wasn't sure if it was closed for the morning or just not open yet, but it didn't matter to her a whole lot. She was there to watch the people from the show set everything up. She wasn't surprised when she saw Stephen Pickman giving his input to everything. He wanted props moved to different places and camera angles to be different. She had a lot of respect for him and his work, and she enjoyed watching him in his element. She felt someone sit down beside her and turned her head. "Are you here to watch the auditions?" The woman shook her head. "I'm here to support my husband, Stephen. He wanted me to be here, so I am, whether I want to be or not." She turned to Gabby fully. "I'm Michelle Pickman. It still feels weird to call myself that." Gabby grinned. "I knew he'd recently gotten married." "I'm Gabriella Tanner, but everyone just calls me Gabby. I'm trying out for the lead, and I'm terribly nervous." She instantly liked this woman in front of her and knew they could be friends. Michelle grinned. "Don't be. Stephen is not a fan of Sierra Barker." "Well, that certainly adds to my confidence level." Gabby shook her head. "It's kind of intimidating to be a nobody up against someone like Sierra Barker." "A nobody?" "I don't think that's how any of the producers or directors see you. They want you to have this part. Sierra pulled some strings to get this third interview, and no one is exactly pleased with her." "I'm not sure you're supposed to be telling me this." Gabby certainly wasn't going to complain about the insider information, but she wasn't sure if Stephen would. "Why not?" "I'm giving the person my husband wants for the job more confidence." "How could that possibly be a bad thing?" "Have you read the book?" Gabby asked, wondering just how much this woman knew. "Yes. Of course I have. I was the chiropractor here on the ranch until a couple of months ago when Stephen fell off the mountain and stole my heart." Michelle shook her head. "Jacqueline went so far as to accuse him of falling off the mountain just to meet me." "That sounds just like her." "Have you met Dr. Lachille?" "Who's Dr. Lachille?" "I'm Dr. Michelle." "Oh, that could get confusing." Gabby shook her head. "Dr. Lachille is a matchmaker who introduces people at the altar. She's here for a vacation and because she knows Kaya and Bridget, but she and Jacqueline are bonding in a way that can't possibly be good for the rest of us." "Oh my." Two matchmakers loose on the ranch? The world may implode. Kaya wandered over then, squeezing between Michelle and Gabby. Dr. Michelle, have I told you I miss you? And that I want you to leave Stephen and live on the ranch full-time again? Michelle sighed. Do you not like the new chiropractor? Oh, he's fine. He's just not you. Kaya rested her head on Michelle's shoulder. You need to adjust me while you're here. Michelle just laughed, patting Kaya. Not this visit. Fine. Kaya turned her attention to Gabby. How are you enjoying the ranch? I love it. This place is absolutely amazing, and it will break my heart if I don't get the part and have to leave. Gabby saw that the set was mostly ready. Is it time to get nervous yet? She watched to see if anyone was motioning her over for her audition, but they didn't seem to be yet. Kaya shook her head. Nope, and do you know why? Why? Gabby asked. Because you're Frankie. Everyone who has met you and read the book can see it. You have this part. Gabby started taking deep breaths. I hope so. I want it so badly, I can taste it. Stephen motioned toward Gabby, and she got to her feet, walking over to join him. She continued her deep, even breaths, hoping they'd calm her down a little. Nervous? He asked. She nodded. Now that I've read the book, I really want to play Frankie. Show us what you've got. Stephen motioned for a man to come toward them. This is Maynard Butts. We want to see how the two of you work together. He's one of the last two actors for Willard. Gabby smiled and held her hand out to shake his. It's nice to meet you. I'm Gabriella Tanner. Nice to meet you. Break a leg. You too. Through the first scene, where they were pretending to be in a ballroom back east, they got along well, both of them enjoying themselves immensely. Gabby was in a pair of jeans and a sweater, and she mimicked being in a crowded ballroom perfectly. She enjoyed the scene with Maynard a great deal, so glad he would be her brother and not her love interest. She couldn't imagine having to kiss the man. When they had finished, she resumed her seat with Dr. Michelle and Kaya, pleased when Kaya was so excited about her performance. You did so good. I can't wait to see you in the other scene. Aren't you supposed to be sleeping? Michelle asked Kaya. Yes, but your husband invited me to come watch, and this is my book baby, and I'm going to watch it turned into a television show. You can't stop me. As they all watched, Sierra was paired with Jacob Myers, and the two of them did the same scene. Gabby felt her heart flutter as she watched. The two of them weren't nearly as good as she and Maynard had been. She could feel it. Sierra and Maynard were paired for the second scene, and they went first. Gabby didn't like the way Sierra played her character. It felt forced and not at all authentic. When it was her turn with Jacob, they worked together well, but she didn't feel the same chemistry she'd felt with Maynard. Maynard felt as if he really could be her brother, but Jacob just felt like someone she was trying to act with. It was hard for her to even explain it in her own thoughts, but she knew if Jacob got the part and she did, too, she'd have to turn down the role. She couldn't work with him. When the auditions were over, Stephen gathered the 4 actors who had been trying out for the parts and told them all they would have an answer by the end of the day. I know that's really fast, but we'd like to start filming in 10 weeks. That means we need people in place and costumes made. Sierra flipped her long, blonde hair over her shoulder. I'm sure there's no need to even wait, Stephen. Tell this no-name that the part is mine, so she can go home in shame. Stephen shook his head. Sierra, even if we liked you for the role, that kind of attitude is not what we're looking for. We want a cohesive family atmosphere for this group. Not someone who is rude to the others. Sierra wrinkled her nose. Are you telling me you're actually considering her? Yes, I really am, or she wouldn't be here today. I think she's done a wonderful job in all of her readings so far, and we're going to all discuss the choices we have." Stephen nodded. "Thank you all for coming here." With those words he turned and walked away, leaving Sierra looking furious. Gabby turned away, but stopped when there was a hand on her shoulder. "You're not going to get my part. Do you hear me?" Sierra hissed. "I don't know why you even want it," Gabby said. "It doesn't suit you at all. You belong in a period piece with long dresses and perfect hair. This one is going to be a girl running around in men's pants and doing manual labor. I'm tired of being typecast. I'm going to get this part." Sierra turned and walked away, and Gabby just shrugged. She'd promised to meet Noah back at the main house, and she wasn't going to give up a single minute with him. The clock was already ticking down. Asterisk. While Noah waited for Gabby, he made sure he'd packed the snowmobile he planned to take her on well. He would take her around the ranch and just a little way up into the mountains. He wanted her to love them as much as he did. When she reached him, her face was a bit bewildered. He frowned at her. "Is everything all right?" She nodded. "Sierra was kind of nasty toward me, and I'm not sure why. It's not like she considers me serious competition. The other woman had made that very clear. She should." Noah handed her a helmet. "We're going for a ride. I packed a picnic lunch." She tilted her head to one side, considering. "Is that snowmobile strong enough to carry you, me, and all the food you'll eat for lunch?" "I sure hope so." He winked at her, fastening his own helmet on and throwing one leg over the machine. "Sit behind me and hold on tight." Is this to show me the ranch or for your own sinister pleasures? Is there a difference?" Noah started the machine, and they started out slowly, increasing speed as she laughed. "Fun, isn't it? I should probably be scared, but I'm not. This is a lot of fun." As they flew over the different parts of the ranch, they passed Jacqueline's house, and she saw the woman out front, Dr. Lachelle, at her side. She lifted a hand in a wave, amazed at her own daring. He took them around the perimeter of the ranch, not going up at all, and finally stopped the machine for a minute in an out-of-the-way spot to turn around and look at her. "I want to take you up, just a little, to have lunch. There's a really nice picnic spot. Won't take more than 15 minutes to get to." Gabby eyed him for a moment, wondering if her heart could handle the excitement. Finally, she nodded. "Let's do it. You'll bring me back if I'm scared, though, right?" He kissed her then, clunking the fronts of their helmets together, both of them laughing. "Absolutely. I won't do anything that frightens you too much." "Who gets to determine too much?" He shrugged. "We'll decide together." "That scares me." He laughed, starting the machine again and heading toward the mountain. She wrapped her arms around him and held on for dear life, realizing that he was staying as far from the edge as possible as he took them up the path. It wasn't long before they'd reached a small plateau, and he stopped the vehicle. He got off, offering her a hand. "There's a picnic pavilion here. I can start a small fire in the pit if it's too cold for you." She shook her head. "It's downright balmy." "What is it? 27 degrees today? That's like a heat wave. For a Louisiana girl, you sure are adapting well." He unpacked the lunches he'd brought with them, and carried them to the table, spreading out a tablecloth. "I thought you'd like it to be a romantic picnic with a tablecloth and everything." She grinned. "Very nice. I wouldn't have known you had it in you." He laughed at that. "Well, I try. And I asked Paisley for some advice on girls." He wasn't even ashamed of asking. She knew he was a complete loss where women were concerned, and she'd been excited to help what little she could. "You sure you don't feel anything for her?" He made a face. "Kissing Paisley would be like kissing a sister, only I don't have a sister, and I'd have to substitute my brother's face, and you." She realized then that she'd forgotten how high up they were. I'm going to look and see if I freak out. He sighed. Can't you wait until after we eat? If you do freak out, then I have to take you down the mountain before I can eat. His stomach needed to be appeased, fear or no fear. What was I thinking? Of course you need to eat first. How could I have forgotten that stomach of yours? Gabby turned and looked toward the edge anyway, needing to know if she could handle it. It's beautiful. Noah moved around the table closer to her, wrapping his arms around her from behind, hoping she wouldn't get scared, and not because he was hungry. You all right? She nodded. I really think I am. I'm surprised by how all right. I don't know if it's because you're with me or because it's just so breathtaking, but I could do this again. Noah smiled. Good. Now that we've discovered you're all right, let's eat. She laughed. I'm sorry. I know it's been at least an hour since your last snack. I did have a bag of chips and a box of raisins while I waited for you. He pulled out the boxed lunch he'd brought. Bob made us a couple of lunches. I figured we couldn't go wrong. No, we couldn't. Gabby had just taken a bite of her sandwich when her phone rang from her pocket. Probably my mom checking on me. She hates that I'm so far away and not checking in every 2.3 seconds. She dug her phone out of her pocket and looked at the screen. I don't know this number. They couldn't have made a decision already, could they? Giving Noah a half-frightened look, she answered. Hello? Gabby? This is Stephen Pickman. Are you busy? His voice was brisk and businesslike. Having lunch on the mountain, she said with a smile. Her heart was beating faster, and her hands were clammy, despite the cold. That sounds lovely. I'd done that with my beautiful bride a time or two. I wanted to call you and let you know that we've made our decision. Gabby closed her eyes. With the way he'd worded it, she knew that Sierra had gotten the part. Thanks for letting me audition, she said softly. And I've loved every moment here at the ranch. And you'll continue loving the ranch because you're playing Frankie. I'd love to talk contracts with you later this afternoon. How long will you be picnicking on the mountain, do you think? She looked over at Noah, her eyes giving him the answer he wanted. How long before we go back? Noah looked at the time on his own phone. I can have you back by 2. Would 2 o'clock work? Absolutely. I'll see you at the main house then. Meet me in the lobby. We've been given use of an office for our meeting. Thank you. Who's playing Willard? She asked. She needed it to be Maynard. Maynard Butts. You two have a feel together on camera that made us all believe you were brother and sister. Wonderful. I'll talk to you soon then. Stay safe coming down. Stephen responded, ending the call. Gabby sat quietly for a moment, forcing herself to breathe. Then she let out a scream loud enough to be heard down at the ranch. I got the part. Noah felt as if a weight had lifted off his chest. So you're staying? Well, I'll need to go home and pack my things, and I'm not sure when I'm supposed to be here, but I have to assume I'll be here soon on a more permanent basis. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to let it all sink in. I'm not going to make something up, though I'd like to. I'll have more information after I've signed the contract at 2. I'm going to wait in the lobby for you, so I can hear all the details. Noah shook his head. No, I'm not. I'm going to get dressed up, and I'm going to take you out to celebrate tonight. He took a huge bite of his sandwich. Do you want to go to the restaurant here at the ranch? Or somewhere a little quieter in town? In town sounds really good to me. I'm not sure I want to share the moment with anyone but you. She reached out and took his hand. I'm so glad you were with me when I found out. Now I probably really should call my mother. He frowned. Aren't you going to finish your lunch? I couldn't eat a thing. He shrugged and reached over, picking up her sandwich. If she couldn't eat it, he sure could. There was never a reason to let good food go to waste. Chapter 7. Noah dropped her off in front of the main house at 2, heading off to change for their dinner date. It wasn't time to eat yet, but he'd find a snack in the meantime, and he'd quietly celebrate the fact that Gabby would be spending more time on the ranch with him. After giving Noah her helmet, she smoothed down her hair and walked sedately into the main house. She wanted to run, skip, and jump, but she didn't want to be seen as childish in front of her new employer either. When she got to the lobby, she was surprised by what she saw. Sierra was there, her arms flying in every direction. Gabby caught the words, "You gave a nobody the part over me?" Stephen caught Gabby's eye and motioned her forward. "Yes, I did. Gabby fits the part, and you don't." Sierra glared at Gabby. "I've never even heard of you." Gabby shrugged. "That's okay. It won't hurt me when I'm acting at all." She refused to back down to the Viper. She'd heard too many stories of the way the diva treated women in Hollywood. Stephen laughed softly. "I have an empty office ready to go over your contract with you." He nodded to Sierra. "I hope you have better luck with the next part you go after." Then he led Gabby from the room, refusing to listen to the seasoned actress as she shouted behind them. Gabby still couldn't believe this was really happening. She'd half expected him to tell her he was joking when she'd come back to the main house to meet with him. "Thank you for considering it nobody like me when the part came available." Stephen shook his head. "Someone needs to duct tape that woman's mouth shut and leave her that way for a year or 6. "Oh, I know no one's ever heard of me. I figured it would always be that way." She looked at him for a moment as he sat down behind a desk and she took the chair in front of him. "How did you hear of me anyway?" "Bob Bodefeld's mother lives in Louisiana. 7 Brides for 7 Brothers is one of her favorite plays, so she went, and when she realized how good you were, she taped a bit of the show, which she wasn't supposed to do, but she knew Bob would enjoy watching you act." He shook his head. "Bob knew about this project and thought you might be what we were looking for, so he sent the video to me. After I watched it, I showed my partners. We all wanted to offer it to you then and there, but we had you audition. You beat Sierra out in the last round of auditions, and we were all ready to offer you the part, but she threw a fit and asked her agent to talk to me. Her agent is an old friend, so I agreed to this, but told him she couldn't throw any fits. I won't agree to audition her again." Gabby's eyes widened. "Even if she's right for the part?" "Even if she's right for the part. The drama that comes along with having her as a member of the cast isn't worth it for me." Stephen pushed a contract toward her. "Now, let's talk numbers." He offered her an amount per show that made her gasp. She knew it wasn't what the big stars made, but she really didn't care. It was more than she expected to make as a CPA. "You'll live in a housing unit here on the ranch while we're filming. You can choose to stay here full-time or not, but you'll pay for your own lodging when we're not filming. We want you to sign a 5-year contract, meaning that if the show does happen to be renewed for a full 5 years, you'll play the part the entire time. If you happen to become pregnant during that time, we'll either write a baby into the show, or we'll find a way to film around it. Any questions?" She shook her head. "Those all seem like reasonable expectations to me. If you'd like to have your lawyer look over your contract, you're welcome to do so, but we'd like you to be signed on by Wednesday evening at the latest." "When does filming begin?" "We're hoping to have all of our ducks in a row within the next 10 weeks. You'll need to be on set for at least 3 weeks prior to that to be fitted for costumes, learn your lines, and get used to the terrain. It's a much higher altitude than you're used to, and we don't want you getting sick from it." Gabby nodded. "Sounds good. I would like time to look over the contract on my own and make sure I read all the fine print. I may take it to a lawyer in the area if I'm not sure about something, Stephen nodded. Very wise of you. I'm excited to work with you, Gabby. Not half as excited as I am. Gabby fairly floated out of the office and up to her room. She threw open the curtains and looked out over the ranch, wondering what she'd been so afraid of earlier. There was a knock at her door, and she hurried over to answer, not sure who to expect. It would be hours before Noah was there for supper. Well, that might not be true. The man could eat 24 hours a day, apparently. When she opened the door, she stood looking at Sierra, and she forced a smile onto her face. What can I do for you, Sierra? Who are you sleeping with to get the part? Everyone knows I'm a bigger draw than you are. Maybe that's the case, but I fit the part better. They didn't want someone as glamorous or beautiful as you, Gabby said, trying to butter the other woman up. She didn't want a scene. So they chose me because I will look right at home with dirt smudged on my face. Sierra wrinkled her nose. I won't forget this. Gabby shrugged. I wouldn't expect you to. I'm sure you'll go right back to Hollywood and get a big part in some movie franchise that will make you millions. Sierra sniffed. Of course I will. Who'd want to work at a place like this anyway? With those words, the actress turned on her heel and walked toward the elevator. Gabby didn't wait to watch her get on. She had more sense than that. Instead, she closed her door and leaned against it. Walking to her bed, she sat down and read through the contract. It was long and tedious and filled with legalese, but she understood it. When she finished, she laid it on the nightstand. There was nothing unexpected at all. Stephen had done a good job explaining it all. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. Daddy? I just got offered a contract for the part one want to play. I read over it, and it all looks good to me, but would you mind taking a look? I'd feel better if you did. Can you fax it to me? You've got my fax number, right? Of course. She carried one of his cards in her wallet. I'll see if the front desk will let me fax it. They want a signed contract by Wednesday, but I'd like to get it back to them faster than that. Sounds good. You'll have my answer this evening. Just text me. I'm going to be out. Out? He asked. Out with whom? Gabby felt herself blushing, and she was glad she hadn't done a FaceTime call. Having her father see her blush was not on the agenda for her day. I'm going to dinner with a friend I've met since I got to the ranch. His name is Noah. She tried to keep her voice calm, but she knew her feelings for the rock climber had to show. He'd already become very special to her. All right. Have you told your mother about this, Noah? No, Dad. And I don't plan to yet. Right now we're just friends. If there's a reason to talk to her about him, you can bet I will. She took a deep breath. I'll have this faxed to you within a few minutes. Thanks for your legal expertise. She ended the call, blowing out an exasperated breath. She'd always been overprotected and terribly shy. Now it was catching up with her. She hurried down to the front desk and talked to the girl who was there. Is there a fax machine I can use? Yes, of course. How many pages? The girl's name tag read Jennifer Olson. Gabby shrugged, holding out the contract. I'd rather you didn't read it and just send it if that's possible. Of course it is. We guarantee privacy here at Rivers End Ranch. Do you have a number you want this fax to? I knew I was forgetting something, Gabby said, grinning. She pulled her father's card from her wallet and handed it to the girl. The fax number on there. I'll wait to get my papers back. Certainly. The girl immediately turned and fed the papers into the machine after pressing a few buttons. The contract was back in her possession 5 minutes later. Thank you so much. My pleasure. I hope you're enjoying your stay. I'm convinced this area is what God meant when He talked about paradise. It's absolutely beautiful here. Gabby glanced out the window behind the front desk. The mountains and the lake are beautiful separately, but put them together, and I'm sure I'm in heaven. I felt the same way when I first came to the ranch a few months ago, Jennifer said. I've spent my whole life in a beautiful area of Colorado, but I took it for granted. I wasn't kind, and people there hated me. I came here, and it looks a lot like the area I left, but I feel like I'm getting a second chance, if you know what I mean. I do. Gabby smiled at her. I'm going to be working here for a while. I just got offered the part of Frankie on Legacy. I hope we can be friends. Jennifer's face lit up. I'd love that. I'm afraid to even reach out to people, because I'm afraid my old ugly ways will show. I'm trying hard to change, but it's just not easy. Gabby covered Jennifer's hand. Well, we should do lunch sometime soon. Maybe Monday? I'd love to have lunch with you at the cafe. I'd really like that. I'm off Monday, so the timing is good. I'm the new man on the totem pole, so I get weekends, but that's okay. I'll see you for lunch Monday then. Let's meet at the cafe at noon? Perfect. Gabby hurried to the elevator. She had to look her best for her date with Noah. She only had one dress outfit, and she was already wearing it, but she could do something with her wind-tousled hair and her makeup. Crying about getting your dream role in a television series was not good for your makeup, waterproof mascara, or no. It was less than an hour later when he knocked on her door, and she stood looking at him, a smile on her face. What is it about you that makes my whole body feel so alive? Noah grinned at her. I like the sound of that. She laughed. Don't get all full of yourself now, Noah. I like you as you are. Good. I made reservations at the Italian place. Are you hungry? I'm starving. I could eat. I didn't really seem to finish my lunch. While he drove, she told him about sending the contract to her father to read over. He'll make sure there are no hidden loopholes or anything else I should know about before I sign it. I think that's really smart. You could have taken it to a lawyer near here, but there's no one you'll trust like your father. He pulled into the restaurant parking lot. I've been excited all day knowing you'll be staying. She grinned. Me too. Then she remembered Sierra's visit. Well, maybe not all day. She quickly related everything that Sierra had said to her that day, remembering that he hadn't been around when she'd seen him with Stephen either. And I found out how Stephen got the video of my performance in Seven Brides. How? Bob Bodefeld's mother sent it to him, and he showed it to Stephen, thinking I'd be right for Legacy. I'm so glad that worked out. Can you imagine Sierra playing Frankie? She shuddered at the thought. The girl would not have been able to do the character justice. No, I really can't. And I'm not sure how long the ranch would have been able to keep her around without an uprising among the employees. There were already complaints being tossed around about her. Noah leaned over and pressed a kiss to her cheek. Congratulations. Thank you. She looked at him by the lights of the dashboard of the car. Just so you know, it didn't matter a great deal that I got the part until I met you. After that, I couldn't imagine going home. He cupped her face, leaning down to kiss her softly. I didn't much care about the show. There's been a lot of excitement about it on the ranch, but until you arrived to be part of it, it didn't matter to me at all. Now, I sure am glad you're staying, Gabby. Me too. She snuggled closer to him in the front seat of his truck. He groaned after a moment. If we sit here for another minute, we're going to miss our reservation. What are you doing to me, Gabby? I almost forgot food for a minute there. Gabby couldn't help but laugh. Someone or something needs to make you forget about food every once in a while. He shook his head. I'll starve to death. I watched you eat 6 sandwiches for lunch, and then you ate the last 2/3 of mine. I think you're going to make it. I'm a growing boy. She laughed as he took her hand and pulled her toward the entrance. We have reservations for two. Noah Andrews, he said. The hostess checked her list and nodded. Right this way. They followed her through the restaurant to a quiet corner in the back. Are you celebrating anything this evening? Yes, we are, Noah said. We're celebrating life, Gabby added. She wasn't sure why she wasn't ready to tell the whole world about her new part, but she wanted to keep it close to the chest for a little while yet. Once they were seated, the hostess asked if they wanted wine, but when they refused, she took the wine glasses away. You don't drink? Gabby asked. He shook his head. Nope. Never developed a taste for it. You? Not a fan of how it makes me feel. She looked down at the menu, reading over the selections. Do you want to just order for me? You'll eat most of my meal anyway. Aren't you hungry? He asked, frowning. I'm starving. You'll still eat most of my meal. He seemed to consider for a moment before nodding. You're probably right. I do tend to eat more than my share. I hadn't noticed, she said softly, then burst out laughing. I'm not a good enough actress to pull that off. He shook his head at her. Just think, in a few months when I take you out to eat, you'll be mobbed with people begging for your autograph. You're about to be popular. It was all Gabby could do not to start singing the words to the song, Popular, from Wicked. She had been in more than her share of musicals, and she knew the words to a lot of songs from them. I'm not sure I'm ready for all that. I'm not sure it matters if you're ready. If you sign that contract, it's happening. You'll be like a little pebble that starts rolling down a hill. You won't be able to stop until you reach the bottom, or in this case, the top. The server came by then and introduced himself as Greg. Do you want any appetizers this evening? Gabby didn't bother to answer. She knew Noah's opinions would be much stronger on this subject than hers. After they had ordered, he took her hand in his. I know you're nervous about the whole thing, but I also know you're going to do great. I've heard from a lot of people just how great you did in your audition this morning. They said you and Maynard Butts really had great chemistry. He took a sip of his water. I'm not sure how I feel about that. She laughed. We had great chemistry as siblings. Trust me, there's nothing more to it. That's a relief. I worried that you'd have to kiss him for the show. Not at all. They'll eventually bring in someone to play Wally, if the show goes that long, and I'll have to kiss him. It's going to be a family show, so there won't be any almost bedroom scenes, but there will be some kissing going on. Noah sighed. I guess I'll have to get used to that idea, won't I? Is there a reason for it to bother you? He shrugged. I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know. She laughed. Now you're just toying with my emotions. Very cruel. No, I'm guarding my own heart until I'm ready to say how I feel. Very wise of me. He brought her hand to his lips. I'm just glad that at least for now, you're staying. Chapter 8. When Noah dropped her off that evening, Gabby hated the idea of leaving him. She had no idea where they were going. Was he just a vacation fling? Or did he want more the way she did? She couldn't ask. All of her friends had told her that the "where is this relationship going" conversation ended relationships faster than anything else could. He walked her into the main house and escorted her to her room that evening, holding her hand. When they got to her room, he took her keycard and unlocked her door for her. Thank you for letting me celebrate with you, he said softly, brushing his lips across hers. There's no one I would have preferred to celebrate with. I fly home on Wednesday afternoon, she told him, wondering how he'd feel about that. But you'll only be gone for a day or two, right? To get your things? She shrugged. I'm really not needed here until 3 weeks before we start shooting, and that's 7 weeks from now. I'm not sure what I'd do here in the meantime. Now that she knew she'd be making a healthy amount of money starting in a few weeks, she could borrow money from her parents to come and stay before then. She hated the idea, but the idea of being without Noah was even worse. That long? Noah frowned. Whose food am I going to finish when I'm still hungry? That's not really what bothered him, but he wanted to keep things lighthearted. He didn't want her to realize that she was as important to him as she was. Gabby frowned. Maybe there'll be another girl here for a few days who eats like a bird. He shook his head. No, I'm going to eat off your plate, or not at all. Wait, we both know that's not true. I'm going to eat off your plate or my own. No one else's. She laughed. That makes more sense. Do you want to watch a movie tonight? The library here has lots we can borrow. She was tired, but she wanted every moment with him humanly possible. I'd really love that. Do you want to change into something more comfortable? We have to watch the movies in the library or go through the hassle of checking them out. The truth was he knew that his feelings for her were too strong for them to be alone for long. In the library, there was always the risk of someone coming in. He didn't want to accidentally do anything that would make her uncomfortable. She was too precious to him for that. Yeah. I have some shorts and a t-shirt that would be perfect for movie watching, unless we have to leave here. Because I might freeze to death if we have to leave here dressed that way. Oh, I'd keep you warm, he said, his lips a hair's breadth from hers. Go change. Yes, it's here in the main house. He wanted to kick himself from using the cheesy keep warm line, but she'd seemed to really like it. He leaned against the wall, waiting for her to change. He could have gone into her room with her and let her change in the bathroom, but it didn't seem wise. Not at that moment. 10 minutes later, they were headed to the library hand in hand. He opened the door, and her eyes widened. Do people know this is here? He shrugged. All the employees know about it. I'm not sure if all the guests do. It's a pretty cool secret, isn't it? What do you want to watch? She asked, her eyes scanning the titles on the shelves. There were so many movies that she hadn't even heard of on those shelves. They could watch nonstop for a month and never watch anything twice. I have no idea. You pick something. He'd be watching her anyway. His feelings for her were so strong. He couldn't bear the idea of her leaving in a few days. Why couldn't she just stay? She grabbed something from the shelf, not really even looking at the title. It had Julia Roberts on the front, and she'd found you couldn't go wrong with Julia Roberts. Putting the DVD into the player, she moved to the couch and sat down, handing him the remote. She learned early in life that if you were watching a movie with a man, he needed to hold the remote control. It was like he was genetically predisposed for it, and if he wasn't allowed to hold it, his male parts might shrivel up and fall off or something. Noah took the remote as if it was his due, before wrapping his arm around her. If he couldn't keep her there forever, he was going to enjoy every minute with her that he could. Notting Hill? I've never seen this. I haven't either. But I love Julia Roberts. We'll see what we think. She rested her head on his shoulder and was amazed at how quickly the movie flew by. It had her caught between laughter and tears a few times. I picked good, she told him when the movie was over. He grinned at her. The movie had been a romantic comedy, and a decent one as rom-coms went, but there were things he'd have rather watched. He'd done as expected, though, and watched her and not the movie. It wasn't bad. I thought it was hilarious when his sister followed Anna into the bathroom and wouldn't quit talking to her and had to be asked to leave when she was unbuttoning her jeans. That girl was a mess. Her eyes were excited and dancing as she told him her favorite part. What did you like best? Probably when he had to wear goggles to the movie because he couldn't find his glasses. Noah hadn't cared about any of it. She'd been at his side, and that's what was important to him. She grinned. That was funny. I'm not sure I'm ready for this night to end. I'm leaving soon, and then we won't be able to spend time together. But you'll come back. Soon. He frowned. I don't want you to go. He wanted to kick himself, but saying it was probably the only way he could get through the next few days without acting like an absolute lunatic. She took a deep breath. I don't want to go. I want to spend the rest of my life right here on this couch with you. How long do you think it would take us to watch all these movies? We could test it and find out. Of course, we'd have to have regular food deliveries. I'm hungry. Already? She shook her head with a grin. I guess we can go to the restaurant. I could probably eat a bite or two of a dessert. I could eat enough for both of us. Noah got to his feet and held his hand down to her, pulling her to hers. I'm not going to let myself think about you leaving yet. Instead, I'm going to concentrate on the next 3 full days we can spend together. You're not working? Don't you rain on my parade, Gabby. We'll spend every moment we can together, and it will be wonderful. I can go for that. She wanted nothing more than for him to ask her to stay. She knew she had to go home and get her things, but more than anything, she wanted to stay where she was forever. In his arms, she was home. At the restaurant, he ordered them each a burger and fries. Only one meal for you? Avery, the server, asked him. I've never seen you eat so little. Noah shrugged. I'm learning self-control where food is concerned. Gabby shook her head. He's already had 2.5 dinners, and he's going to eat 90% of mine. I might eat a fry. Dina smiled. Now that's the Noah we all know and love. Gabby studied Noah after Dina left. Everyone knows and loves you? She'd thought it was just her. Well, the men love me because I take them up on the mountain and show them how to climb it. And what can I say about the ladies? It's not my fault they throw themselves at my feet begging for just a crumb of the 3 meals I'm eating at any given time. Do you ever share a crumb? Not with anyone but you. But with her, he wanted to share everything. She could have the first bite of his burger if she wanted. He wouldn't be happy about it, because the hangries would attack him, but he'd let her do it because he cared that much. That's when it struck him. He cared about her more than he cared about food. She was the woman for him. Gabby noticed that Noah had suddenly gotten a vacant expression on his face, and she couldn't help but wonder what it was about. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. No, well, maybe the ghost of Christmas future. Because now he knew he wanted every Christmas to be spent with her. And every spring and every summer. Forever could never be long enough with the girl beside him. We should get a piece of the huckleberry pie. Have you ever had huckleberry pie? She shook her head. So huckleberries are real? They're not just the name of a boy who floated down the Mississippi? Not at all. Huckleberry pie is the dessert of Idaho. We're going to have a piece to share, because I don't want you to feel as if Idaho has slighted you. I wouldn't. Gabby studied him a little more, worried about the look she'd seen on his face a moment before. It was gone now, and he seemed to have returned to normal, but she worried about what it meant. Was he thinking about an ex-girlfriend and comparing them? She hoped not. Soon their burgers were there, and she ate one fry while he plowed his way through the rest. It's a good thing I like to watch people, she told him. If we're going to eat out a lot, I have a feeling I won't always be eating when you are. I don't usually eat out a ton. It's easier to hide how much you eat if you eat at home more. Noah shrugged. It was one of his secrets for being a foodaholic. Eating at home for most of your meals. I never even thought about where you live. Not here on the ranch? He shook his head. I lived here when I first came to the ranch, but now I have a cute little apartment in Reston. You should come to supper tomorrow night, and I'll show you. I'd love to cook for you. She studied him for a moment, her lips pursed. Can you cook? I haven't starved to death yet, and that is a testament to my cooking. I don't enjoy cooking a whole lot, not like Bob, but I enjoy eating, and I enjoy being able to pay rent, so I typically cook for myself. She realized then how much he'd spent on her during her time there. You need to stop buying my meals. I can get my own. Noah shook his head. That's not what I'm saying at all. I can do this for a week or two. I just don't always live this way. He popped another fry into his mouth. What about it? Dinner at my place tomorrow? Only if you let me help you cook. Can you cook? He asked, one eyebrow raised. I'm no gourmet, but I've never poisoned anyone or burned any kitchens down. Then you may be my sous chef for the afternoon. I have my last lesson at 2 tomorrow, so I'll be done and off the mountain by about 3:30. May I pick you up then? She nodded, wondering what his place would be like. She loved the idea of having an evening just the two of them. Sounds good to me. It was only then that Noah realized they would be alone all evening. He wanted to kick himself. They'd watched movies in a public room this evening, just to avoid being alone together, and now they were spending the next evening alone in his apartment. Sometimes he wondered if his brain got clogged by all the food. They tried the huckleberry pie, and she was surprised at how tart and strong the taste of the berries was. This is good, but I'm not sure I'd want it again. Noah shrugged. It's not my favorite, but I had to let you try something that was all about Idaho. After he paid, he walked her to her room, stopping outside her door for the second time that night. I guess I really do need to leave you this time. I guess so, Gabby said. It's been a wonderful celebratory day. I couldn't have asked for anything better. She stood on tiptoe and kissed him softly. Her phone had vibrated in her pocket 6 times in the past 15 minutes. She was sure it was her father, and he would go a little insane if she didn't answer soon. Thank you, Noah. Noah stood outside her door for a little while after she'd closed it. He was falling too fast. There was only one thing he could do, and he'd do it before meeting her for their outing the following afternoon. Gabby pulled her phone from her pocket just as it started ringing again. Hi, Daddy. Why didn't you answer? I was sure you'd been eaten by a polar bear. There are no polar bears in Idaho, Dad. By a grizzly then. Or Bigfoot. I've heard Bigfoot lives in those mountains up there. Her dad's voice sounded more amused than panicked. I'm good. I promise. I was just spending the evening with someone special. She sat down on the edge of her bed and pulled off her socks and shoes. Did you get a chance to read over the contract? There's nothing in it that you didn't already tell me about. Looks like a standard contract for a television show. You need to be careful not to give away plot until you're told it's allowed and that sort of thing. I'd sign it. Gabby took a deep breath. Really? You'd sign? Yes, I really would. He sighed. It sounds like this means that my baby is going to be spending most of her time in Idaho, filming a television show. It does, doesn't it? Can I just say that I'm a little overwhelmed, but mostly I'm so excited I can't see straight? Are you excited about the show or the man? An hour after they'd hung up, while she was lying in bed, she was still running her father's question through her mind. Was it the show or the man? She wanted both a great deal, and now it seemed as if one was tied up with the other. Would she still have wanted to do the show if Noah wasn't involved, though? Her whole life was about to change. She'd be recognized by strangers on the street. Her name would be a household word, and she would likely be the focal point of gossip in supermarket rags. She wasn't sure she wanted that part of her new life, but she loved the idea of bringing Frankie to life. The character had such a vitality, even just as part of the written word. Turning her into a living, breathing human who people would admire, well, that sounded like something she wanted to spend the rest of her life doing. Yes, it was a little odd to think of herself as famous, but did that matter? At least she knew that if Noah was falling for her, it wasn't for the money she'd someday make. No, he'd felt emotions for her just as she'd felt them for him. It had all started during their walk through the old West town. A place that was part of his life and had been for years. A place that would be part of her future. Her last thoughts as she fell asleep that night were that she and Noah would get used to her new popularity together as a couple. They would have to make the most of the short time they had left before the show aired. She didn't want to be stopped every time she left the house by paparazzi. Chapter 9. Noah went to church at the little chapel on the ranch, surprised to see Gabby there. They'd never really talked about God and religion, but he should have realized she was a believer, just by the way she talked and acted. After the service, she walked over to him and smiled. "I guess we can just start our afternoon now." Noah shook his head slowly. "Actually, I need a little bit of time. Can I pick you up at 1 as we planned?" He didn't want to admit it, but he needed to walk over to Jacqueline's house and talk to her. He prayed the fairies were communicating with her again because he needed their wisdom to know what to do. "Oh?" Gabby looked hurt at his answer, but he couldn't explain. "Not yet. You don't have to spend the day with me if you don't want to. You know I want to spend every day with you forever. I'm not trying to push you off, there's just a little errand I need to run, alone." "Ranch business?" she asked, wondering what it could possibly be. He'd not tried to push her away before, and it felt awful. "No, it's personal. I promise, it's not bad. I'll see you at 1. "Is that all right?" he asked. "Oh, sure. That's fine." "We're going to lunch?" she asked. "I thought we'd go to lunch, and then we'll spend some more time on snowmobiles." "I got you your own this time." Gabby shook her head. "I'm not ready for my own." She was, but she was more ready to sit on the back of his with her arms wrapped around him. He made her feel so safe. "That's fine then. I'll return yours. I'll come to your room to get you at 1. He glanced at his phone and saw that it was 11. That gave him 2 hours to get to Jacqueline's and wade through whatever she told him about his future with Gabby. He badly needed advice, because he was ready to buy a ring and drop to one knee, just to get her to not stay long when she went back to Louisiana. He wasn't sure that was exactly the right reason to propose to a woman. He leaned down and kissed her cheek. "I'll see you in a couple of hours." She frowned after him as he left, wondering what was going on with him. "Something wrong?" a voice asked from behind her. Gabby turned to see Jennifer standing there. "Oh, hi. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on in Noah's brain, but he's a man, so I'm sure it's not figure-outable." "Of course it's not. Where are you headed now?" Jennifer asked. Gabby had a hard time believing people in Jennifer's old home hadn't liked her. "I have no idea. Noah is picking me up at 1 for lunch, but that gives me 2 hours to spin my wheels." Jennifer smiled at that. "Did you get a response to your fax yesterday?" "Yes. It was the contract for the lead and legacy, and I was sending it to my father, who's a lawyer. He told me to sign. He thinks it's all in my favor." "Oh, that's great." Jennifer started walking toward the main house, and Gabby fell into step beside her. "There's something awfully special about this place. You said you'd grown up somewhere similar?" Jennifer nodded. "I did, but it didn't have the big family atmosphere, at least not for me. I grew up in Silver Springs, Colorado, and while it was a beautiful place, I never really fit in like I should have." "Any idea why? Was it too cliquey?" "Not at all." Jennifer sighed. "You want to know the dirty truth about me?" Gabby frowned. Only if you want to tell me. Well, the town I grew up in was formed by a family that lived there. The people from that family were like town royalty, and I was always eaten up with jealousy. I did really mean things to the girls in the family. They were actually all cousins, because I was interested in one of them boys in the family. Crazy, huh? Really? Gabby asked. She couldn't imagine the pretty girl beside her being cruel to people. Oh, really? I went after every man who dated one of the girls. I went after every one of the men in the family. I said some cruel things. I hired one of the girls to do an anniversary party for my parents, and I was just rude and ugly. Jennifer sighed. Their family and mine were the richest people in town, and I was sure we should marry to combine dynasties or some such nonsense. I think it's good you left. It really is. They're all married now. All 10 of the cousins, and they're all happy. I was watching them all and getting more and more jealous of their happiness. My parents owned an inn, and they made me train under 2 of the cousins, and I hated them for it. The cousins, not my parents. Now I'm really good at what I do, and I'm glad I'm here, working and doing the things I'm good at. I just don't have to prove anything because they're not around. Well, you sure don't have to prove anything to me, Gabby said with a grin. I'm just a southern girl trying to figure out how I'm going to live in northern Idaho for the next year or so as we work on this show. Only a year or so? Gabby grinned. Okay, so the contract is for 5 years. They have the right to ask me not to do any other movies or shows if they interfere with my filming schedule. I'm so excited. I'm glad. Have you signed the contract yet? No, I haven't. Do you know when Stephen Pickman checks out? He checks out on Wednesday, said a voice behind her. Gabby jumped, turning to see Stephen standing there. I'm going to sign the contract. My father looked over it, and he said I should sign if it's what I want to do. And it is. I want to be Frankie. Stephen smiled. I'm glad to hear it. Do you want to give it to me now, so we won't have to worry about it later? Gabby nodded. Let me run to my room and get it. I'll be back in a minute. Jennifer went to the elevator with her. I've never watched anyone sign a contract for a major part in a television show. Do you mind? Gabby laughed. I don't mind, but I don't feel like I'm important enough for you to want to watch me sign a contract. You will be. Jennifer told her with a grin. I have a feeling this show is going to steal the hearts of the country. So many people have been here and feel like they belong here. They'll all watch it, and they'll tell their friends, who will tell their friends. You'll be bigger than Valerie Savoy by this time next week. I have a feeling you're wrong about that. I love Valerie Savoy, and I don't want to be bigger than her. I think I'll be just fine floating along doing my own thing as the star of the show. Gabby opened her door and found the contract in the corner. She quickly signed her name to the bottom of it and dated it. Let's take this down to Stephen. Then he only has to worry about getting his hero to sign on. Do you know who they chose for that? Jennifer asked. Yeah, Maynard Butts. Do you know him? No idea who he is. Well, I liked him a lot when we ran through lines together. He's going to play my brother, so there will be no awkward kissing scenes for at least a year or 2. Are you in love with Noah? Jennifer asked. Gabby blushed. You know what? I think I might be. I've only known him for a few days, though. Is it possible to fall in love with someone you've known for such a short period of time? I think so, Jennifer said. I think you two look really good together. He's a nice guy, and you're a nice person, too. Together, you'll make nice kids and be happy. Gabby frowned. You didn't have feelings for Noah, did you? Jennifer shook her head. Not for Noah, but I so badly want to settle down. Deep inside me, I have this feeling that I'm absolutely unlovable. I need to be loved. Gabby hugged Jennifer. As your new friend, I declare you very lovable. You know, there's a woman on the ranch right now. I met her Thursday evening at trivia. Her name is Dr. Lachille, and she introduces people at the altar. I wonder if you could talk to her and get her to find someone for you. Are you saying that the only way I could get a man to marry me is if he didn't see me before I walked down the aisle toward him? Gabby's eyes widened, and she felt terrible. No, of course not. I was just trying to mention an alternative. Jennifer laughed. I knew you were. I was just teasing you. I think I'd like to meet her. Are we still doing lunch tomorrow? Yes. Do you want me to see if she'll meet us there? That would be wonderful. I can't believe how much I like the idea of meeting a man after I have said I do. It really sounds like the perfect solution for me. When I first met her, I wondered if anyone took her up on it. I can see they do. Jennifer shrugged. I don't know if it makes me desperate, but I do know I make a bad first impression with men. I'm going to give it a try. Why not? Doesn't bother me. I'm here to support you. You'll have to be my maid of honor. It was with those words that Gabby really understood the extent of this girl's inability to make friends. She wanted to hug her and tell her they'd be friends forever. I would love to. Though she really hoped it would be matron by then. Of course, she had no idea how quickly Dr. Lachille worked. Asterisk. Noah sucked in a deep breath before approaching Jacqueline's house. He didn't want to have to talk to her, but he knew it was time. No one on the ranch married without first going through Jacqueline. He knocked on her door and held his breath, hoping she wouldn't be home. When the door opened, he jumped back. Dr. Lachille? Get in here, boy. We know you want to talk about pretty little Gabby. You ready to propose yet? Dr. Lachille asked him. He went inside, looking around for Jacqueline. When he didn't see her, he stood there for a moment, wondering what to do. Is Jacqueline not home? Yeah, she's outside making up little bowls of honey for the fairies, trying to get back into their good graces. She's no good at matchmaking without their help, apparently. I keep telling her to just follow her gut, but she ignores me. Dr. Lachille waved toward the couch. Move a rabbit so you can sit. Have you ever seen this many bunnies in your life? The door opened, and Jacqueline stepped in. Are you still complaining about the bunnies, Lachille? I don't know what your problem is. Everyone in the world loves bunnies but you. I love bunnies. I just don't know that I love being buried alive in them. Dr. Lachille nodded toward Noah. He's here to talk about Gabby. Well, of course he is. I told you it was Gabby for him. I believe I told you it was Gabby for him. Jacqueline sighed. What does it matter as long as we both agree that it's Gabby for him? No idea. Dr. Lachille sat down in a chair after moving a bunny. Tell us what's on your mind, Noah. Noah looked back and forth between the two women. It was hard enough to tell one person how he felt, but two. It helped him that they were both a bit crazy, so maybe people wouldn't believe them if they talked about this. Is this conversation confidential? He finally asked. Does it need to be? Jacqueline asked, taking her seat. I didn't make cookies and tea for you. If you need some, let me know, otherwise get on with it. Noah frowned. Everyone talked about how she always had snickerdoodles and tea ready, and he felt left out. I do probably need some snickerdoodles and tea. Jacqueline nodded at Dr. Lachille. You get the tea. You know where I keep the snickerdoodles. How long have you two been friends? Noah asked. It felt like they had known one another forever when he watched them. Jacqueline frowned. I don't know. A day or two? How long have you been here, Lachille? I got here Thursday, but I met you Friday. We've known each other since Friday. Now, why are you really here? Jacqueline was watching him carefully, her eyes wide. You know you can tell me. Well, you were right. It's about Gabby. Dr. Lachille let out a whoop in the kitchen. Told you it was her. I told you. Jacqueline yelled back. When she saw the look on Noah's face, she smiled. Now, what about Gabby? Noah wondered how many times he'd be interrupted, but he decided he didn't care. He was going to say what he needed to say. When the cookies appeared on a plate in front of him, he grabbed one and instantly felt better. He didn't even need to eat it as long as he was touching it. Well, Gabby got the part she wanted on Legacy, and I'm thrilled for her. I want her to stay on the ranch, and this way she can. That sounds like it's good news, Jacqueline said. Oh, it really is. The only problem is that I don't want her to even go home to pack her things. She doesn't need to be here on the ranch for filming for another 7 weeks. How am I supposed to wait 7 weeks? Jacqueline grinned. Well, the way I see it is you have 2 options. You can wait that 7 weeks, pining away for her, wondering if she's found another man while she's gone. Or you can ask her to marry you now and marry her before she leaves. Then she'll come back faster. I can't ask a woman I just met on Thursday to marry me. My dear boy, how long have you worked at Rivers End Ranch? Jacqueline asked. About 10 years, I think. Noah shook his head. What does that have to do with anything? Haven't you watched how fast people get married on this ranch? It's almost like there's something in the water. Of course, a lot of it has to do with the help the fairies provide me to help others. Jacqueline smiled not so modestly. I'm sure that's a lot of it, Noah said obediently. So you don't think it would be a problem to just go and propose to her? Not if you have a ring. Do you have a ring? Jacqueline eyed him suspiciously. Well, not yet. I only met her Thursday. How many times do I have to tell you that? Noah was sure he was dealing with crazy people, but now that he'd started, he was afraid to stop. So go get one during your lunch hour tomorrow. The fairies say she's having lunch with someone else. So the fairies are talking to you again? Dr. Lachille asked excitedly. Well, they just did, but don't hold your breath. They're pretty finicky creatures. I never know if they're going to talk to me from one minute to the next. Jacqueline sighed. Why can't the leprechauns be the ones helping me? They like to play practical jokes, but at least they don't get their feelings hurt at the drop of a hat. So you're telling me that if I go buy her a ring during my lunch tomorrow, and I ask her to marry me, that's my best answer? Noah asked. Jacqueline shook her head. I told you that you have 2 choices. Which choice you make is completely up to you. The fairies and I don't tell people what to do. We give them choices. Noah was sure he'd heard about her flat out telling people what to do, but he was afraid to argue with her. He took a deep breath. So now I'm supposed to contemplate which is the right answer? Sounds like the logical conclusion, doesn't it? Jacqueline asked. Noah looked over at Dr. Lachille, who was sitting quietly, having only eaten one of the snickerdoodles because Noah had polished off the rest. Do you agree? That you need to make your own decisions? Of course, I do. I don't tell people what to do any more than the fairy lady here does. I will tell you that I think you're stupid if she doesn't have a ring on her finger before she gets on that plane to go back to Louisiana, but I won't tell you what to do. Jacqueline nodded. Very stupid. Imbecilic really. Noah sighed. All right. I guess I'm spending my lunch hour tomorrow buying a ring. Why do you sound upset about it? Dr. Lachille asked. I thought you came here to talk about how much you loved her and couldn't let her go. I did. And I do love her, and I can't imagine spending the rest of my life without her. So what's the problem? Jacqueline asked. I've never eaten her cooking. What if I starve? Can I come here and get cookies if she can't cook? Noah asked. I'll send you care packages if necessary. Just go marry the woman. Dr. Lachelle waved him toward the door, and he stood up, carefully avoiding two gray bunnies who seemed to be kissing each other. Did bunnies kiss? He had no idea, but those two seemed to be. How many bunnies do you have, Jacqueline? Noah asked as he walked toward the door. I'm a matchmaker, a fairy whisperer, and a bunny keeper. I'm not a mathematician. Jacqueline closed the door firmly behind him, and he heard her laughing as he walked away. She was odd, but everyone trusted her to do the right thing where matchmaking was concerned. He rubbed the back of his neck as he checked the time. I'll have to do it during lunch. I need to be at her room in 10 minutes. He broke into a run, not certain how Gabby felt about men being late for dates. Chapter 10. Noah picked Gabby up for lunch at 1 as he'd promised. They drove the short distance into Riston in silence. Finally, when they were almost there, she asked, How was your meeting? What meeting? Noah asked, thoroughly confused. I got the impression you were meeting someone after church. She watched him carefully for a reaction. Oh, that. It was enlightening, confusing, and very frustrating, but I made it through. He stopped the truck in front of the Chinese place in town. I hope you like Chinese. I'm about to order 8 meals. 8? Yeah, I've been nervous. Being nervous consumes a lot of energy. Gabby laughed. If there was one thing she could always count on, it was the fact that he would always be hungry. If you had just been eating at an all-you-can-eat buffet, and someone came to your house with a pizza to share, would you share it? That depends. On what? She asked. On whether the pizza had anchovies. I can't abide anchovies. He took her hand and walked into the place with her. After ordering more than any one person could possibly eat, he looked at her. What do you want? Couldn't I just have a little bit of each of your meals? She asked. He really had ordered 8 full meals for himself. She found Chinese food to be overly filling to begin with. He frowned. Why don't I order one more meal, and then you can share? Gabby sighed. All right. I won't eat a whole meal anyway. I know you won't. I think it's what I love most about you. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, Noah bit his tongue. He hadn't meant to declare his love for her in the middle of a Chinese restaurant in Riston. He'd planned to take her up onto the mountain and sweetly tell her how he felt. Oh, she asked. She didn't know what else to say. Was she supposed to tell him she loved him, too? What kind of a declaration of love was that anyway? It was almost insulting. Of course, he was a man who loved food, so it wasn't completely surprising. He shrugged. Well, you don't eat my food. Of course that makes me happy. After lunch, they went back to the ranch, and he took her up onto the mountain again. He stopped at the place where they'd picnicked, because it was time for a snack. As he ate a bag of nuts, he asked, Are you up for going a little higher? Gabby thought about it and realized she really wasn't at all nervous. Yeah, I think we can go higher. As long as I get to keep holding on to you. He walked to her, tilting her chin up for a kiss. As far as I'm concerned, you never have to let go. On the machine, he started up the mountain again, carefully staying on the mountain side of the path, so she wouldn't be nervous about falling. When they got to the place he'd wanted to take her to, he carefully stopped and got off, holding his hand out to her. From here, you can see the whole empire. I love to look out over the whole ranch and know I have access to all those places. I'm part of this dynasty. She put her hand in his, taking deep breaths to quell her fears. What if I'm too afraid to look out? You won't be. You're here on the ranch to face your fears. I promise you, I'll be with you every single step of the way. He led her to about 5 feet from the edge. There was no danger there. Look. Gabby gazed out over the ranch, her heart stopping in her chest for a moment. It's so beautiful. Is the whole lake on ranch property? It is. I have a feeling you'll be washing clothes in that lake at times. She grinned. Banging them on a rock to get them clean. I want to see that. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. I don't want you to be afraid, but you needed to see this place. You need to know that you can be up here and not have a panic attack. She took in the view for another moment before turning in his arms, wrapping her arms around his neck. You know something, Noah? What? I think you're pretty incredible. Thank you for helping me to face my fears. Haven't you figured out yet that I'd do anything for you? Asterisk. During his lunch the following day, Noah drove into Riston to the jewelry store there. Despite how he'd made things sound to her, he was no pauper. He wasn't rich, but he had a nice healthy savings account, and he couldn't wait to put the perfect ring on her finger. He looked into the cases, knowing he didn't look like he had any right to even be shopping in a store like this. He was covered in mud and snow from his morning on the mountain, but there was no time to change before his jewelry shopping. Can I see that one? He asked the man behind the counter, who immediately nodded and took out the ring he wanted to see. Is this for an engagement? The man asked. It is. She's the most beautiful girl in the world, and she has the biggest, greenest eyes I've ever seen. May I make a suggestion then? Please. I've never even imagined being in a jewelry store shopping for an engagement ring. Most men haven't. The man slid another ring out from the case, holding it out to him. If her eyes are green, there's a good chance she enjoys wearing that color to bring out her eyes. So I would get this one. There's still a large diamond solitaire, but this one is surrounded by tiny emeralds instead of diamonds. She'll know you were thinking about her tastes when you chose it. And it's 500 less than the other ring you first chose. Does that mean it's not as good? Noah asked. She deserves the best. Oh, no, of course not. It just means that most people think they need just diamonds in an engagement ring. Dare to be different and get her something that suits her. The man looked at Noah for a moment. Do you have a picture of her? Noah fished his phone out of his pocket. I took a selfie with her on the mountain last night. He showed the man the photo. She is very beautiful. Definitely the emeralds. All right. Noah pulled his debit card from his wallet. Let's do this thing? Will you be needing financing? The man asked. Nope. I've got a debit card, and I know how to use it. Gabby's lunch with Jennifer and Dr. Lachelle was interesting, but she was happy to have a couple of hours alone before it was time for Noah to pick her up for the evening. She only had one more day to spend with him before she needed to go back to Louisiana. Then 7 weeks without seeing him at all. She wasn't sure how that would work for her. She'd never been in love. She'd never even had crushes like all her friends in school. She'd always been the most level-headed girl she knew about men. And now here she was, eating her heart out for a man who climbed rocks for a living. She dressed carefully, but she had little to wear with her that he hadn't seen. In the end, she put on a pair of jeans and a casual t-shirt. When she heard the knock, she grabbed her sweater and jacket and pulled both on. Opening the door, she saw Noah leaning in the doorway. Hi, you. Hi. He caught her hips and pulled her to him, kissing her. Can you handle one quick ride up the mountain before we go to my place for supper? Sure. But you won't starve to death? I have emergency rations. 3 bags of beef jerky, a big bag of Cheetos, and 6 bottles of water. I think we're going to be fine. She grinned at him, shaking her head. We don't have long before it's dark. Is it safe? We'll hurry. He knew he couldn't take her to the spot where he'd let her look out over the ranch the night before, but he could take her to their picnic spot. Surely that would be almost as good. They got to the front, and he climbed onto one of the machines sitting there, and she got on after him, snuggling close. She loved the snowmobile because it meant she had the right to wrap her arms around him, and no one thought a thing of it. As they rode up the trail, she rested her cheek on his shoulder, glorying in being close to him. She loved him more than she'd ever dreamed she could love a man, and she would leave for 7 weeks and 2 days. There was no way she wasn't going to make the most of the time she had left with him. When they reached the picnic area, he led her to the overlook, and they both looked down on the ranch. The view wasn't as spectacular as it was from the spot he'd taken her to do the day before, but it was still nothing short of breathtaking. I've lived here for 10 years, and I love this ranch. It's in my blood as much as it is in the Westons. I can see that. Why was he telling her this? I don't ever plan to leave River's End. I'll retire from this place an old man. If you want to have someone in your life who sits behind a desk, I'm not him. Noah felt the need to warn her that he was never going to change occupations. He loved what he did, and he wasn't going to change that. I understand. I'm glad you've found what makes you happy. So many people haven't. You don't mind that I climb rocks and teach people to ski for a living? He watched her face as she answered. Why would I mind? So you wouldn't mind being married to a man who has no desire to do anything but physical labor for the rest of his life? Her heart started thumping in her chest, going wild. Noah? Are you trying to ask me something? He pulled the ring box out of his pocket and held it out to her. I listened to the guy in the store when he told me you'd like emeralds surrounding the diamond, but there is a diamond. If you don't like it, I can take it back. She opened the box and gasped. I love emeralds. I wear green all the time. Her eyes met his. I can't answer a question that hasn't been asked. He took a deep breath, pressing her fingers to his lips. I love you with everything inside me, and I know we've only known each other a few days, but I think we need to get married. I can't bear to let you go. Gabriella Tanner? Would you do me the honor of being my wife? Gabby felt a tear drift down her cheek as she nodded. Yes, I'll marry you. My parents will think I'm crazy, but I don't care. I love you, too, Noah Andrews. He wrapped both arms around her and lifted her off her feet, spinning her in a circle. Now? Now? You mean marry you right this minute? Tomorrow would be good enough. Pastor Kevin is used to crazy fast weddings around here. Gabby bit her lip. Saturday. I'll call my parents. Mom will pack my things, and they can be here for the wedding. She knew Jennifer would have to be her maid of honor. After the talk they'd had the previous day, the woman was better in her corner than out of it. I guess I can wait until Saturday. It does seem like an awfully long time away, though. She pressed her lips to his. We can make it that long. If it's true love, it lasts for more than a week. A lifetime is all I ask.